Trump is more popular in his personal approval rating right now than he's ever been in his entire 8-year political career.
Donald Trump's a 4-year-old when it comes to understanding any issue, but especially foreign policy. The United States economy is outperforming every other economy in the world right now under Biden's policies that ostensibly Harris will continue.
Trump actually tried to pull out of Syria, which he had campaigned on.
But he didn't criticize that he doesn't respect the Constitution. They all consistently
No, I'm not saying, okay, fine. They don't respect the Constitution. We were in Syria unconstitutionally.
Please, I feel like I should be your mother and just shut you guys up. You don't think that Biden
is energy production higher under Biden than Trump?
And you just
is energy production higher, Sarah Palin? It's a very simple question. I know facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no question.
You're an obnoxious.
I mean, I'm obnoxious. You're a racist. We want to play that game?
There is just over a week to go in one of the most consequential elections in American history. And both campaigns are finishing big. Big rallies.
Kamala, you're fired. Get out. Get out.
We are going to fight for the country we love.
Big names.
His obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dog gothic MAGA.
Big audiences.
I always got more publicity than other people. I don't know exactly why.
You said a lot of wild
maybe.
Big claims.
And not having a president of the United States who admires dictators and is a fascist.
As the candidates make their closing arguments, Uncensored is in New York City for a big debate. Well, from New York City, I'm Piers Morgan, Uncensored, of course, and I brought together a fascinating panel to debate really where we are with this US presidential race. Last night was this incredible rally at Madison Square Garden. I was there, the first time I've been to a Trump rally, or any political rally for that matter, and it was a fascinating experience. It'd be interesting to see what my panelists have to say about that. But the bottom line, we're 8 days from one of the most consequential elections in American history, and I want to spend the next hour with 4 very opinionated people with different opinions to thrash out the big picture themes of where we are with this race, and more importantly, who's going to win, and should they win? So let me introduce them. First of all, former Governor Sarah Palin. You were former Governor of Alaska, and you're the Vice Presidential nominee, of course, in the 2008 McCain-Obama election. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Mehdi Hasan, the Editor-in-Chief of Zateo News. Mehdi, great to see you again. Dave Smith, libertarian commentator and host of the Part of the Problem podcast. Good to see you. And Destiny, streamer and political commentator. So 4 big names, big beasts in the punditry jungle. Brought you all together. Sarah, you were at the rally last night.
Yes.
What was it like for you?
It was an electric environment. Most of Trump's rallies are like that, though. You know, just so much energy and just a lot of enthusiasm. Last night, I think the biggest surprise, though, was outside of the arena, how much enthusiasm you could feel out there with all the red hats and all the New Yorkers who were so bold and courageous coming out for him.
No protesters. So
I
the
didn't see any.
Secret Service told me 150 people turned up to protest. And all I could think was, back in 2016, I remember tens of thousands of people marching around the streets of Manhattan in fury about Trump. Where did they go?
Right. So I think that was the big difference. It was just in terms of a positive environment. It was so much positivity, and like you say, the protesters seemed to be non-existent. I don't know if they chickened out or what, or they just didn't have it organized or however they usually roll. But yeah, they weren't there. What
do you say to those who this morning have woken up to headlines in the New York Post and many other media outlets saying it was, the nearest thing to 1939 all over again, but also specifically latching onto the comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who told what I thought was some extremely lame and offensive excuses for jokes about Puerto Ricans, about Latinos. Like he told some about Jewish people and so on. None of it seemed to work. He was the first one out as a speaker. And of course, all it did was allow people who hate Trump, particularly in the media, to say, well, look, this is what we warned you about. This is what this is all about. What do you say to people that say that?
It was Hillary Clinton who made that general accusation, the false accusation that anybody who was going to show up there at the rally was, a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer. And I think she incentivized a lot of us, me personally, to get there to be there present to prove her wrong, to prove that, oh gosh, here's another lie, here's another mischaracterization of who Trump supporters are. So no, there was no hint of what had happened back in 1939. Hillary, too, forgets that she was at one of those rallies. Her husband's rally was held in Madison Square Garden also. She certainly didn't ascribe to herself and to her husband that same false accusation.
Mehdi, I'm sure you agree with every word that Sarah Palin's just said. I can't think of two more kindred political spirits.
I mean, if I take Governor Palin's point about going to prove something wrong, the problem is we weren't proved wrong. That rally could have proved us wrong. Donald Trump could have run a rally, and the Republican Party could have done a rally and said, what are you talking about? What a fake liberal accusation. Instead, they just served up line after line of hate, and that's the problem. Trump is who he says he is. MAGA is what we think it is. So when you tune into the rally, I wasn't there, thankfully, but when I tune in and see what was said, I mean, you just have to listen. You mentioned some of it. Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. Black people like to cut up watermelons, not pumpkins, on Halloween. Jews are stingy. Palestinians are terrorists. Effing illegals.
His argument, Mr. Hinchcliffe, is
only one of those is true, but you have to guess which one.
Kamala Harris is surrounded by pimp handlers. She's the Antichrist and the devil, right? The neo-Nazi great replacement theory. Immigrants are being brought to replace us. And that's all before Trump even took the stage. That's just the warm-up act.
What's the point I was going to make? I was there. It was 6 hours. I would say that the offensive bits that you're talking about, some of them were clearly not intended the way they were, some were. But I would throw back at you.
No, you don't.
I reckon if you had 6 hours right now of Kamala Harris and her people talking about Trump, it wouldn't take them long before they're into he's the new Hitler.
Okay.
And on the scale of
this is desperate stuff even by your standards.
Well,
I was at the DNC. I sat for 6 hours in a very uncomfortable seat.
Right.
People did not make racist remarks. Hold on, let me finish. You interrupted my point.
I'm asking you a question.
Go on.
You've got a chance after this.
I will,
We'll do
don't
one for
worry.
you. But my point is, it wouldn't be long before the Hitler stuff comes out. And honestly, on a scale of offence, calling someone the new Hitler, isn't that actually worse than anything else?
First of all, I was at the DNC. I sat there 6 hours every night in a very uncomfortable seat. Nobody called Donald Trump Hitler from the stage. So your argument falls apart. Let's talk about what actually happened last night. The governor can do whataboutism. I don't know why you're doing the whataboutism. Let's talk about what happened last night.
Well, I can only call it as I see it.
Let me finish my point. Before Trump even got on stage, we had the Puerto Ricans, the Jews, the Palestinians, effing illegals, pimp handlers, Antichrist. That was all there. Then Trump gets on stage and says immigrants are invading and occupying our country, which is the language of the far right. He talks about the press being the enemy of the people, which is straight from Goebbels. You've condemned that line. He talked about the enemy within, which is literally a Hitler line. So if you don't want to be accused of sounding like Nazis, there's a simple solution. Stop talking like Nazis.
Dave?
All right. I don't know. I think the whole Nazi comparison is really tired and played out. And by the way, I also think like when Trump calls Kamala Harris a communist, I don't think that really hits home. I think all this stuff is kind of silly hyperbole. I also, look, I'm good friends with Tony Hinchcliffe, so
lucky.
Well, I'm just stating my bias.
So talk to me about his act.
Look, if you
his argument, I saw him tweeting, saying, well, I had to go at everybody, I was joking.
Well, look, this is what Tony does. And so, like, if you want to argue with me that you don't think it's appropriate to put like an edgy comedian at the beginning of your political rally, fine, but I don't think it's fair to like lump all those things together as if they were in a serious speech. Clearly the guy was making jokes, and if you don't like that, that's fine.
Hold on. What I quoted was not just from Tony Hinchcliffe.
No,
it was Trump's childhood friend who called Kamala the Antichrist.
My point is that you were mixing in what the comedian said with what other people said. So I think they should be viewed differently. I do think that there is Donald Trump has found a way since he entered politics in 2016 to do something that's very unconventional that nobody else in politics is really doing, which is that he makes his events entertainment. He makes them comedy. When people come out to see Donald Trump, it's a different feeling than just listening to a policy speech.
That's why, I mean,
you may like that or not like that, but I do think that and it's almost like after 8 years of this, if the response from Trump critics is, you're Hitler, that's just not hitting home, because whatever it is that people are seeing, that's not it.
No, it's a show. I mean, I called him, he's the Mick Jagger of politics, in the sense that Jagger's 80, Trump's 78. It is a show. You turn up to about 30 speakers of increasing celebrity status. It was like being at a big music festival where the band gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you're into J.D. Vance and Elon Musk and Melania Trump, and then the big one, the headline act, on comes the big rock star. That's how he does this. Yeah. That's his old television hat on, understanding entertainment. And Madison Square Garden, of course, is an iconic venue. It's the heart of Manhattan. It's the place where you would least expect to see a Republican rally.
It's not a swing state.
And at one stage last night, every single network, main network and cable network in America, was taking it live, including Mehdi, your old employers, MSNBC, who vowed not to take any of his rallies. For $1 million, which is what it cost him to rent that venue, he's getting about $100 million worth of publicity. That's got to be good politics. Never mind anything else.
Oh, I think so. I mean, if you're just like analyzing it in terms of like whether it helped him or hurt him, there's something powerful about going into your opponent's territory, selling out a big arena, and getting that type of press. So in that sense, I think it was politically a win for Donald Trump.
Destiny, where are we with this race? Because the polling suggests that it's a knife edge, too close to call. But if I'm a Democrat looking at the swing state polling in particular, I'm pretty nervous right now.
I think as an American, I'm pretty nervous. It feels like there is just like a totally different standard that both sides can play by. It's really funny listening to the idea that one statement in a 6-hour entire rally, can't be used to convict Trump or his campaign or the rally. Meanwhile, when it comes to Democrats, you guys will pick out like one line from somebody, and that will be fair to characterize their entire speech. They're absolutely not as bad as each other. Because the difference is that while Trump will have
in terms of picking out lines from lengthy speeches, I think both sides play that game equally hard.
Yeah, but the problem is somebody will pick out, say, the Biden line where he talks about MAGA Americans, and then when you read the speech immediately after, he goes, not all Republicans are MAGA Americans, it's a minority of the party. It's just these people that deny, for instance, the election outcome, right? He'll specify, he'll clarify. Whereas for Trump, you can pick out lines, and these lines are not only consistent with everything else that he says, they're consistent with the policy that he advocates for and tried to pass in government. We're living in two completely and totally separate worlds where the standards for both sides are just out of this world.
So why is it that he may win? After everything that happened in the first term, after the way it ended, after the fact he was dead and buried, really, 2 years ago. I mean, I remember Ron DeSantis being way ahead in the polling to be a Republican nominee.
Yeah, before he ever talked to a single voter.
Right. But obviously but actually you could chart Trump's recovery was when the Justice Department started going after him in all sorts of different legal actions, and that is when you can see Trump's popularity starting to go up.
I totally disagree. It started to go up when he started to be more active in campaigning.
He went out to defend himself against all the legal charges.
He hasn't defended himself against any legal charge, to be clear. His defense is, I need criminal immunity. That's his defense. There was nothing that was defensible. He didn't deny a single thing. He didn't say anything didn't happen. He said, I need criminal immunity from the things I'm being charged with. I can't possibly commit crimes.
Nobody has more aggressively defended themselves against criminal charges than Trump.
Name one defense. What's the defense for the Mar-a-Lago thing? What's the defense for the conspiracy to overturn the election thing?
You're conflating what I mean by defense with your idea of defense.
My idea of defense is like you say, this is why I didn't commit a crime. I did commit a crime and I need immunity. Immunity by definition legally is not a defense,
right? But in relation to the one that he's actually being convicted of, I still think it was an absolute farce and a woeful act of self-harm by the Democrats who fueled this to go after Trump first for a bit of paper shuffling over paying a porn star off for a fling 18 years ago, which he denies ever having.
How many months did we have Hillary Clinton's emails being the front and center story for the news? How much did we hear about Hunter Biden and his cock and his crack addiction or whatever, who's, by the way, still not running for president?
How can Bill Clinton, when he was actually president of the United States, have sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lie about it to the American people, and it's not him that gets dragged through a criminal court, it's Trump over a fling with a porn star 18 years ago?
Hold on. And I could be wrong because I'm younger. I'm only 35, okay? My understanding is that Bill Clinton was impeached in the House, and that Bill Clinton was...
But he was never criminally charged.
And then because he didn't... I don't think he committed necessarily a crime. I think
he paid off Paula Jones $850,000
they're not even
for a sexual harassment
Bill Clinton
case.
is disgraced.
Bill Clinton,
no. Bill Clinton is disgraced in the Republican Party, and Donald Trump is the hero of the Republican Party. They're not even remotely similar to how the parties treat them.
Yeah, but Bill Clinton's a Democrat, and he still speaks at the DNC.
Of a time I'm not seeing. We're doing Bill Clinton now?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I am. Very much
let's talk about Bill Clinton. Did he overturn an election? Did he send a mob to the Capitol to overturn an
I've
election.
just told you what he did.
No, but I'm asking you what he did compared to Trump.
Well, he had sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lied about it to the American people. Do you not think that's important?
Yes, I was against Bill Clinton. You picked the wrong guy. I was never a fan of Bill Clinton. Nice try. Try again. Let's talk about Trump. I tried to overturn an election. He's not been tried for it. Do you think it's right, Piers, as someone who objected to the insurrection, that he's going into election in 8 days? You asked Destiny, why is he still doing so well? Because he was never tried. You want to talk about the DOJ? I think the DOJ is an embarrassment. I wish they'd gone after him. They didn't go after him because he's going into an election having not seen the inside of a courtroom. For Georgia, for DC, we heard him commit a crime on tape, Piers. You heard him. You heard him say to Brad Raffensperger, find me the votes. If you had done that, I'd done that, we'd be in prison right now. We wouldn't be running for re-election. That is the reality. The American people never got to hear in court all of the charges against him. You saw the Jack Smith indictment.
Just so I'm clear on this here,
Yeah.
and forget how Trump's guilty of all these crimes, whatever. When you're asking why is he getting so much support, your honest theory is that if he had just been prosecuted more, then his people would have turned against him?
It's not monocausal. There's many reasons he's doing well.
Okay, but one of the causes.
Democrats have run a bad campaign. Gaza is a factor, etc., etc.
Sure. Lots of factors.
The media doesn't know how to cover this stuff. But yes, clearly...
You think it would have hurt him with his supporters had he
not
been
with his
tried
supporters,
for
but we know
insurrection,
nothing
inciting
hurts
an
him with his
insurrection?
supporters. I've given up on his supporters. We're talking about the people who actually are persuadable. Yes. When was he most unpopular, Dave, in his entire life? On January 7th, 2021. So, yeah, America is a country of amnesiacs. I can say that as an American and an immigrant.
But Mehdi...
People just memory hole everything Trump did.
Mehdi, for a whole year, they've gone after him legally, and right now Trump is more popular.
And every time it's made him more popular.
Right, but Trump is more popular in his personal approval rating right now than he's ever been in his entire 8-year political career. How can that be happening if it isn't actually a lot of Americans going, this is absurd?
I mean, if we're going to play the polls game, all the polls show that he's actually, the American people think he should have been prosecuted.
Okay, sir.
Trump supporters recognize that it is not Donald J. Trump, a person whom is to be supported. It's what he represents. The Trump train that has been so aggressively moving forward with great intention for this country, we recognize it's what is represented on that. It's all about freedom. It's all about not allowing our country to be fundamentally transformed, as Barack Obama had promised he and his ilk that they would do to America. He said that back in 2008. We recognizing we don't need a fundamental transformation of America. We need a restoration of all that's good about America.
What is the freedom that Donald Trump represents?
And that is what Trump.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Is it the freedom to not have an abortion, to have a police officer looking over you when you go to get tested for pregnancy? Is it the freedom to have a president that lives above criminal prosecution? Is it the freedom to have tariffs related to every single product that we might import into the country? What is the freedom?
We'll take one freedom that he is quite adamant about, because the majority of Americans are adamant about, and that's our Second Amendment rights.
I'm sorry. How much anti-gun legislation or executive action did Biden do? And then compare that to Trump. Biden did nothing. Trump banned bump stocks, so that's an auto loss for you. What's the next?
Well, let's talk about Kamala and her position.
Okay.
Are you saying Kamala or are you saying Kamala?
I say Kamala because I don't see any point in deliberately mispronouncing a name.
Like Trump does every single time he speaks.
Well, I don't want to
Hussein Obama.
Yeah, Hussein. Yeah.
And they called him the new Hitler. So all's fair in love and war.
Excuse me, but also didn't Trump try to accuse Obama of not being born in the United States? Wasn't that his entrance into politics? Again, it's not just what he says; it's what he does. Just asking questions. And even when Arpaio came out with the birth certificate, they said, no apology for that.
Okay, so you asked about the freedom.
When you're called a Nazi,
they called Obama a communist for 8 years.
Let me finish my point.
Oh my goodness!
But you're obsessed with this one point. It's all you have.
It's quite a big point because you're
comparing.
It's not
because Trump calls
Didn't
Harris
Trump
a
say
fascist.
immigrants were the poisonous to the blood of the nation or whatever?
You're comparing Trump to the most evil person in modern history,
J.D. Vance
who murdered 12 million people, who perpetrated a Holocaust of 6 million.
Hitler. The only person I know who's called Trump Hitler is his running mate, J.D. Vance.
And his last general called him a fascist.
Oh yeah, his last general, by the way, his top general said he's a fascist.
These are the people that have worked the closest to him.
His chief of staff says he praised Hitler. Should we go down the list?
Well, they didn't praise Hitler.
Do you know more about Trump? I know you're friends with him.
He said he would like to have had the loyalty of Hitler's generals.
That's not true. He said that's not true, Piers. Let's be some facts. He said, quote,
he said that or not.
Hitler did some good things, is what he said.
He denies saying that.
Oh, Trump denies it.
The Charlottesville rally.
How do you know he did?
Piers, you trust Donald Trump over General John Kelly. Just say that to the world. I want to hear you say it.
Possibly on that,
Not possibly, do you? Yes or no?
It's been denied.
So
by other people who were in the
Trump
room.
lies
Well, other
in
people
every breath.
Other people. I don't dispute that he has a problem with the truth, but I would say that other people who were in the room at the time say he never said it.
So let's just be clear. All of the top generals and military people who worked with him: Mark Milley, John Kelly, Jim Mattis, H.R. McMaster.
They're all fired,
Mark
right?
Esper. None of them were fired, actually. No, McMaster quit. Mattis quit. Kelly quit. So you're wrong again, Piers. Piers, facts matter, Piers. I know you're pushing.
When you say quit, what do you mean? They quit?
Literally walked away.
Or they were forced away.
No. Let me finish because you're getting this all wrong. I know you get your talking points from Fox these days. Well, you did. You just said something that Fox says. John Kelly walked away.
I sit in my liberal chair when I do the fire.
John Kelly walked away and Trump praised him on the way out. Mattis walked away, Trump praised him on the way out. The only time Trump started criticising them is when they pointed out stuff that he had said to them. So all these generals are lying, and Donald Trump, a man who has problems with the truth, to use your phrase, is telling the truth. Come on, Piers, it's embarrassing.
Well, but how do you, listen, I tend to agree with you. I don't know. I don't trust Donald Trump for sure. But even, like, I know a little bit about your politics, but am I really supposed to just, these generals are all beyond lying? I mean, Mattis, as you know, right? Mattis resigned because Trump actually tried to pull out of Syria, which he had campaigned on.
But he didn't criticize Trump.
No, by the way,
I agree with you.
No, he did.
No, he said he doesn't respect the Constitution. They all consistently
No,
say
I'm
the
not
same
saying, okay,
thing.
fine. But, like, what does that even mean to them? They don't respect the Constitution. We were in Syria unconstitutionally. We were there without a declaration of war.
The game is always comparing both sides.
No,
I try to
I'm
pretend
not.
that they're the same. It's not even wrong because we haven't declared war since World War II.
Yes, I know. That's my point. The thing is, you're just projecting that I'm playing that game.
Dave,
I'm talking to him about something else.
Dave,
I'm not playing your dumb game.
I'm agreeing with you on the foreign policy. I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is,
pretend to laugh all you want.
Do you believe all the generals are just attacking? Forget the generals. Go through everyone. His press secretary, his vice president. We can go through the list. NBC went to 44 cabinet officials and said, "Are you voting for Trump?"
Yes. Okay.
4.
Okay.
Said
So
yes.
let me ask you a question. I believe that I do not trust Donald Trump. I think he's not an honest person. He's a self-promoter who will say whatever makes him look good. I believe that when Donald Trump said all of this rhetoric about drain the swamp in 2016, when he said we're not going to fight these wars anymore, when he, maybe somewhat unwittingly, called out Obama and John Brennan for the literal treason that they committed in Syria, with a capital T, arming and funding the enemy in wartime, okay? When he said Obama created ISIS, things like that, I think he made a lot of enemies in Washington, D.C. And the idea that you could get 5 or 10 of them to come together and all say something bad about him, I'm not...
Dozens.
Okay, fine, dozens.
Dave,
I don't believe them either.
Okay, Dave, you're a smart guy. Let me just put it to you, just very simply. If I'm Mike Pence, am I not voting for Donald Trump because my family almost got killed or because Trump was in Syria? I'm going to take the simple answer that he's not supporting Trump because he saw that Trump did on January 6th. Well, that's my point. Okay, you can go down the list. I could be here all day telling you about former Trump officials who have turned on him. They can't all be lying.
Yeah, they can. Actually, I mean, they can. By definition, they could.
All of them are lying and Trump's telling the truth.
It's not
it sounds
a law.
insane.
It's not. Well, no, I don't. It's not a law of logic that they couldn't all be lying. Yes, you could get a bunch of people in D.C. together to lie. That's how do you think we got in Iraq, right? You got a lot of people in D.C. together to lie.
Let me just say,
this is the reality.
Hang on.
To support Donald Trump is that every single person is lying, but not Trump. This is the time that he's telling the truth. This is the game that's played.
That's exactly what's being said. Hang on, but Destiny, what you... Hang on.
Wait, I'm just curious. One question. Is there one other person with this track record of people around him that say he's a bad guy that you would support? Can you think of a single person with even half as many people that have worked closely with him, all of his personal people before elections, people like Michael Cohen, people like how many people in his campaign were arrested and then he pardoned immediately, people like Manafort, people like Bannon, like any one other person, just one person.
Destiny.
One person.
I'm going to say one thing to you, which is notwithstanding all your blind fury, you two, about
it's
all
not
this.
blind. It's very. We're seeing it clearly.
I would say though, what's fascinating to me is the moment I try and turn it back and say, yeah, but hang on, what about the rhetoric from your side?
So give me the rhetoric. I want to hear
Hitler, the Nazis,
who said Hitler?
the Madison Square Garden.
Who said Hitler? We've done this before in July.
Literally, Hillary Clinton just said this was 1939 all over again.
The
rally. A Nazi-style rally. She's calling Trump supporters
I do think it's a Nazi-style rally.
Yes, you do. So you do think he's the new Hitler?
Hold on. A Nazi-style rally does not mean you're the new Hitler.
What does it mean?
By the way,
what does it mean?
Hold on. You do this every time. Trump called Biden.
The Nazis were his party.
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
Huh?
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
What's that got to do with it?
I'm asking the question. Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
No, I'm asking you. If it's a Nazi rally, why is he not the new Hitler?
Piers, is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
Who's running these new Nazis?
Is Joe Biden the Gestapo?
What's it got to do with it?
I'm asking you a question. Do you think Joe Biden is the Gestapo?
I'm asking the questions. It's my debate.
Well, okay. Well, then let me just point out to you.
Answer my question first.
I will. Joe Biden was called the Gestapo by Trump. I've never heard you criticize Trump for calling Biden Nazi. Why?
I thought we weren't supposed to do whataboutism.
Exactly.
I'm completely wrong.
Exactly.
By the way, I don't care. I think it's a legitimate point you're making.
By the way, he wasn't in the Gestapo. It's offensive. It's wrong. Okay. So is it equally offensive? But you think it actually genuinely was a Nazi rally?
Do you see the difference between saying that people say
that it was a Nazi-style
in terms of the
rally?
retail that I said?
So
do you think Kamala's antichrist? Do you think Kamala Harris is the antichrist? You can't just ignore the facts.
Let Sarah speak.
Yes, please. Jeez, I feel like I should be your mother and just shut you guys up. I'm not your mother. You're grown men, and I have respect for your ages, if nothing else. But listen, you did just say that it was a Nazi-type rally, meaning Nazi-style rally.
Yeah, meaning people get up and say outrageously.
So who's the leader of this group?
Meaning participants are Nazi-style participants?
I'm saying people are cheering on far-right rhetoric. Do you know what the Great Replacement theory is?
The far right.
Do you know what the Great Replacement theory is?
Mehdi,
what about I trade in facts?
What about all the Jews in the audience that I saw? What about the Israel flags I saw?
Israel flag means what?
Well, they may not be thinking he's genuine Hitler.
Do you know some of the most far-right politicians in Europe support Israel right now, including card-carrying anti-Semites across Europe?
Why would Jewish people go and watch the new Hitler and cheer him on?
Why did a Jewish speaker make lots of anti-immigrant racist remarks? I mean, this is ridiculous. Muslims and Jews. A Muslim guy endorsed Trump on Friday. Does that mean Trump is pro-Muslim? Come on, Piers, you're better than this.
No, I tell you what, you're better than this, because when you say it was a Nazi rally...
I didn't say it was a Nazi rally.
You did.
I didn't actually. I said it was a Nazi-style rally. There's a bit different.
When you say it's a Nazi-style rally, you're calling Trump Hitler. You are.
God. Let me repeat myself. I'm repeating myself. I'm saying that I listened to a rally at which people said things that Nazis said. Do you deny that Joseph Goebbels talked about enemy of the people, that enemy within is a Hitler line?
So anyone who uses the phrase enemy of the people is a Nazi?
Not anyone. When Trump consistently uses Trump language, Hitler language, when he says poisoning the blood of the immigrants, was that coincidence as well? Even after he was told that's only from Mein Kampf, and he said it again. Was that a coincidence?
It was a Nazi rally to you.
Was that a coincidence?
Was it a Nazi rally?
No. It was a Nazi-style rally. People said absolutely neo-Nazi things.
So these people are capable of
you just want to
perpetrating
get
a
a gotcha
Holocaust.
line, and I want you to do with facts. Is a Great Replacement theory Nazi theory or not? No. Sorry, facts matter. You can't just say, I'm going to ask you about headline
You're
pictures.
missing my overall point, which is this.
It's not my fault that you don't
point is that you two are very exercised about the...
I'm exercised about the fact that you don't deal in facts, Piers.
Mehdi,
the Great Replacement
let me get a word in.
No. Great Replacement theory is a neo-Nazi theory. Until you address that, I can't continue this conversation.
Let me come to Sarah I want to move to a different thing, because you're not going to address the fact you think
you don't know what the Great Replacement
You think
theory
they're a
is.
bunch of Nazis, but don't really want to say
it.
They're a bunch of
Nazis. Both of your shows, I love watching you guys do this to each other, because watching you guys do it to other people is infuriating, and when you guys go to each other, it's very funny.
And I do it too.
It is true, though. You don't deal in fact when you talk about Trump, though. I agree with him.
No, I do. I'm very...
What's the Great Replacement theory? Why don't you tell your view?
You guys get mad about Trump being afraid of Hitler.
I know the Great Replacement theory.
I want to suspend the Constitution to fight voter fraud.
I don't agree with the Great Replacement theory.
So why was it echoed by Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. yesterday at the rally?
I don't agree with it. What do you want me to say?
So he said replace. Yes, Don Jr. was speaking. He said replace the immigrants coming to replace us.
Trump was thrown a softball question by Sean Hannity, and he said he'd be a dictator on day one.
Let me ask you about...
was teeing him up for a softball question.
But let me ask you about illegal immigration then, Destiny. So we've seen an unbelievably large number of illegal immigrants come in during the Biden-Harris administration. Do you think this is right for America?
I don't think that Republicans think that illegal immigration is a problem right now. In fact, I'm 100% confident.
That wasn't my question.
I
said, do you think it's right that between 7 and 10 million people
the reality
have come in illegally?
Here are two facts that nobody will ever talk
right?
about. I'll tell you. Here are two facts that we do not have a problem right now with illegal immigration in the United States. We have a problem with asylum seeking. Okay, that's the number one. That's a huge thing. But number two, if this was such a huge problem, why were Republicans so content to pull the plug on it when Donald Trump said, "I need to leave the border open for me to run on this as an election issue"? You know what that tells me? That tells me it was never really a problem in the first place. It was just a talking point.
It's Trump's fault.
Definitionally. Wait, I gotta hear this. Do you understand? Do you agree that Donald Trump was the one that told them to pull the plug on the bill?
He said so.
Well, I don't think...
Wait, do you agree that Donald Trump told them, do not vote yes on this bill?
I can try and answer.
Okay.
I don't think he should have been active in getting that bill pulled, because it would have helped. However, and I want to bring Sarah in on this, you cannot dispute there is a massive crisis at the southern border, nor can you dispute...
I'm shocked that you say that Republicans don't believe that the influx of illegal aliens across our borders is not a problem.
Why
it
they
is
pull
a
the plug in the
problem.
bill?
It is a problem, and I think it's not just Republicans who recognize that. Look at even the Democrat leaders of cities who are being overrun, their budgets being busted, trying to support the
and they all
illegals
supported the
who are
bill. They
coming
supported
in.
the bill.
Do you not think blaming Trump for everything though is a bit lame?
I'm talking about
They were ready to
Let me
vote
bring
for
in
the bill,
Dave.
and then Trump said, "Don't do it."
Let me bring in
McConnell,
Dave.
Cruz, Langford, all these people said we were going to vote for the bill, and then Trump pulled the plug on
show
it.
where you've not
Hang
said
on.
one critical thing about Donald Trump since it started.
Actually, what I was going to say to you
Not
before I
one
got
critical thing you
before
said
I
to
got
us.
shouted
Unbelievable.
over yet again on my own show, what I was going to say to you was,
I thought it was going to be Dave and Sarah versus me and
When
Destiny,
Trump-
but apparently
when-
apparently
hang on.
it's me and Destiny versus Sarah and Piers.
when I, you always like to do this, and it's not true.
I've not heard you say one critical thing about Trump.
When Trump was
Not
president,
one.
I wrote 110 columns for the Daily Mail about Trump. When he left, I counted negative, positive. It was about a 50-50.
Great, but not today.
So I have been very, very critical of Trump,
Not
and
today.
I felt he's deserved it. Well, no, because I find that with you and with Dessa, with great respect to you guys, you absolutely love sticking it to him. When I try and stick it back to your own
No,
problems with your own
accountability
party,
is the most
you don't want to hear
toxic
it.
the conservatives.
Piers, I can assure you I wish that I hadn't heard a bunch of racist stuff last night. I'm just coming on the show to say I heard a bunch of racist stuff
All right,
last
Dave,
night.
let me ask you this, Dave. Trump's most powerful part of his speech last night was his first line, where he said, let me start by just saying this. How many of you feel better off than you did 4 years ago? And they all do any of you? And they all shouted no. I can imagine millions of Americans at home who've had an extremely tough 4 years because of massive inflation and huge cost of living problems would all be shouting no as well. That, in the end, I suspect will win Trump the election. Nothing else. I suspect it's actually going to be, well, it'll be the failure to control the border, but it will be predominantly that people feel they are worse off than they were 4 years ago.
Well, I think the thing that really undercuts this pitch from Donald Trump is that he really means 5 years ago. You know, like Donald Trump has to run on the first 3 years of his administration and then go, hey, that whole 2020 thing really doesn't count because, like, we got hit with this
is it
virus
unreasonable
and
given
the
it was-
Democrats would have done the same thing. Or
But is it unreasonable, that position? Given it was a global pandemic,
well,
and
it is yes and no.
given by common consent,
Okay, so here's
America performed better than most countries in the pandemic.
Well, it depends on,
By
it depends
common
on how you
agreement.
measure.
It's just fundamentally untrue.
It totally depends on how you measure it.
Economically,
And then it totally
it
depends
is
on what
believed
the-
America performed better than most countries.
We also recovered better, but Biden doesn't get credit for that.
Jeez,
Right.
guys. I mean, I know it's like a week before an election, man, and everything's just got to get down to this tribal. Like, we got to win this point, man. But just for a second, I will say that it's like, look, on one hand, what Donald Trump benefits from is the fact that the entire Democratic criticism of Donald Trump through 2020 was just that he didn't do more lockdowns and do more, you know what I mean? Like, and so they kind of don't get to say it, but he also doesn't really get. The truth is, 4 years ago from today, a lot of Americans were worse off than they are right now because they were recovering from lockdowns. There were people whose businesses were
That's
shut
why
down.
he said from the
now,
start
if
of the
Donald Trump,
administration.
in my opinion, if Donald Trump had been a great leader, had actually risen to the moment he was called to, and had gotten Fauci off that task force, and had been against lockdowns, and had kept somewhat of liberty going through that year, he'd be in a much stronger position
the irony, Mehdi?
to say that.
The irony is that Trump in the pandemic actually behaved like a good old-fashioned authoritarian, and you lot screamed it wasn't authoritarian enough.
Well, listen, I will
not
say,
what I
I do
screamed
think,
at all,
well, maybe not
Just
you.
make up quotes for
There
me,
were
but that's
certainly
fine.
a lot of people who
No, I
were
disagree with you
critical of that.
fundamentally on Fauci, of course, but that's a different
Sure,
argument.
but that's a separate point. Now, for Donald Trump, what he can kind of get at is that, the first 3 years of his administration certainly were much better times for many Americans. I would say this, however, I think in some ways Donald Trump is fortunate that he didn't win the election in 2020 because those years were going to be very tough years for the country. And now the Democrats
had the fastest growing economy in the G7.
Yes, depending on how you want to measure these things, I think they've been very difficult.
Consent, I think is the word.
Man, you guys just are like impossible. in this
facts
stuff.
You try to
I'm
sneak
sorry,
so
Dave,
many
facts
bullshit
matter.
facts. The
Facts
United
matter.
States is doing better than every OECD country, than every G7 country when it comes to
You
inflation, and then
literally
you try to
did.
blame it on
You
Biden.
did.
What's happening?
I said
hang
one
on.
thing. No, it didn't. Destiny, I'm actually not trying to blame it on Biden.
Yeah.
If you listen to what I said whoever was going to be in there was going to have. But that's what you hear because
even
you're
the
in
things
this,
that you
can I
claim-
win the point
No,
mode
it's not about
rather
winning the
than
point.
having any
Even when you
type
say
of real
people were mad about
conversation.
Trump for not being an authoritarian enough, that's not true. People were mad about Trump because, one, he denied that COVID was even in the country for days or or weeks until it was finally evident that we had to say something about it. And then 2, Donald Trump undermined his own health administration so much that the one thing that he wished he could take credit for that he tried to, which was warp speed for the vaccine, he couldn't even do it because his electorate wouldn't even believe that vaccines work.
Hang on, let me bring in Sarah.
Thank you.
Let me bring in Sarah.
You were making a point based on Trump's opening line, right? And I think you were going to make an interesting point, but you were interrupted.
The factual world draws us back so much, I know.
You mumbled an answer, though, when he said Trump asked the audience, are you better off today than you were? And you said, well, no.
They are better off today.
You're saying we are better off today?
Yeah, I know facts
really?
don't matter
The
to you,
$33 trillion debt that we are, the trajectory of this debt, too, is going the wrong direction.
So hold on, Trump added more to the debt than any previous president.
I'm going to give you an
If we're just going to do 4 years.
Look at the inflation rate.
Yep.
Go into a grocery store, see what it costs to buy a dozen eggs, to buy a pound of butter, to fuel up your truck. All these things.
But look at the polls. But look at the polls, by the way, which show the 2 biggest issues for American voters in this election by far
are the
economy, cost of living, and immigration. And that is why, if Trump ends up winning, it will be on those 2 issues.
We agree for the first time in the show. I agree with you that the polling is bad on the economy. That Americans, the vibes are bad on the economy.
That we're not better off.
But the point Destiny made just now is that facts also matter. So, I thought it was a conservative line, facts don't care about your feelings. I don't care that Americans feel bad about the economy. The numbers are very clear. Every economist says the same thing. Every survey shows the same thing. Real wages are actually higher today than they were in September 2020. They are. Real wages are higher. Real wages, you know what real wages are? What do you mean not factoring?
No.
Real wages factor in inflation, Sarah Palin.
No.
That's what real wages are. Factoring inflation, real wages are higher today than in September 2020. In fact, wages have outstripped prices for the last 20 straight months. Household net worth is at a record high. Unemployment is at a 50-year low. We now have 6 million fewer people unemployed.
So why do the vast majority of Americans feel worse off?
Sorry?
Are they all lying about
I think
being
inflation
worse
took a toll, huge toll.
So they are worse off.
But the inflation's now down, right? We're at the lowest inflation rate since February 2021. No, because now real wages are up.
You just said you inferred they were.
Have prices decreased then?
First of all, again, I agree that Americans are upset about prices. I'm upset about prices. But it was a global problem, was it not? Did you not just say the pandemic was a global problem?
Why would they
was inflation not a global problem?
Why would they be upset about prices if they're not worse off?
Because they were. Hold on. In 2022, when we hit record high levels of inflation, if I had sat on your show
they still feel worse off today.
We still have that inflation. It's cumulative. It's year-to-year. It adds
so they are worse off then.
No, that's one factor. Prices are just one thing. Wages are another thing. Net worth is another thing.
I already conceded. Do people feel worse off? Yes. But the numbers say something else.
So they're all completely deluded.
Yeah, people, not deluded, but people, you think the public know everything about everything.
You are underestimating the wisdom of the people.
There's polling on this. You can look at the YouGov polls. You can see.
Been, by the way, since Joe Biden was running for office, and this
itself is all about feelings.
So this has actually been the official Democratic line, which is that this is a great economy. They were saying this back this summer when Joe Biden was in. It's a great economy. All of the numbers show it. All of the economists say it. But there's this problem where people just don't agree.
And
people are so stupid.
They don't know.
Let me get a sentence out here. Listen, as you guys kind of just alluded to there, look, the problem with inflation is that it is cumulative. And so even though the inflation rate has come down, that's just adding to the prices.
Correct.
And people have been absolutely destroyed over the last 3.5 years over this price inflation. It is literally everybody I know has felt the pressure of it. Even people who make like really good money. It's been very, very difficult. I do not think this is something that is at the lays at the feet of one party or the other. The truth is that Donald Trump in the year 2020, not all Trump, but his government locked down the economy and added $6 trillion to the money supply in the year 2020. That was going to result in some price inflation. But Biden then in 2021 came in. They kept the money printing going.
But it was also a global issue, Dave.
I'm not denying there was inflation problems around the globe. I'm saying we're talking about America right now. This is something that is now the politics of it are that the actual price inflation pretty much all fell on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's watch, and that's very difficult to get yourself out.
Can I just say one point about this thing about you say about facts and feelings? I can prove to you that Americans are not doing this as some kind of rational calculation. I can prove it to you. If the American people really cared about inflation and prices, that's their number one issue, then they would vote Harris. Because every single economist, 95% of economists, according to a University of Chicago survey, say they will pay higher in tariffs. Tariffs will bring up inflation. Every serious economist in this country... No, Piers, you're missing the point. Because if inflation is your number one issue...
I've made my point.
Because you let me finish mine, you jumped in. If inflation is their number one issue, then they should be voting for Harris. Okay. That proves that inflation's not their top issue.
Here's the problem. The problem is that the reality of the inflation issue, as you've all basically admitted, is that inflation, by very definition, is increasing prices even if the rate comes down. So Americans are paying consistently, month by month by month, for the entire Biden-Harris administration. They're paying more when they go to the grocery store.
But their wages have gone up too, Piers. This is a key part of economics.
But the
real wages have gone up.
But the vast majority of working class people in America
their wages have gone up.
They feel worse off. And that is going to... ultimately, it's going to resonate.
We're kind of not really disagreeing. At the very beginning, I said I take your point about feelings.
Yeah.
I'm just saying facts show that they're better off. If you want to answer the question Trump asked honestly, people are better off today.
Let's turn to war, because that should calm down the debate. Destiny, look, obviously it's a pretty consequential election in many ways, but not least, I would argue, for the fate of people in Gaza and Ukraine and other hotspots around the world. Where are we with these? I mean, it's quite interesting to me that for the first time I can remember, you have a body of Republicans who do not want to back, say, Ukraine against a Russian dictator that illegally invaded their country. I remain very perplexed and surprised that is the view. And Sarah, we can come to you for why that may be. But that is the case. If Trump was to win, he says he'll fix it all in 24 hours. I don't think he will, but he will try and do a deal. The question is, what is that deal? Because Ukraine are saying they're not going to give up an inch of the land.
So the issue is that Donald Trump is a 4-year-old when it comes to understanding any issue, but especially foreign policy. And a lot of people have this, they're obsessed with this idea of peace in their mind, which if you're in conflict, peace is the furthest thing from your mind. You want some kind of just peace or justice, right? So Trump's solution for Ukraine is just give up the land that's been taken from you and everything will be kosher, just like Russia did in Moldova with Transnistria, just like Russia did with South Ossetia and I can't even pronounce the other place in Georgia, and just like Russia's trying to do now with Ukraine. If you're somebody that wants, justice for Ukraine, or you want the United States to remain a world leader when it comes to, ensuring trade routes or being somebody that the world looks to ensure relative peace and freedom and stability throughout places like Europe, which it has enjoyed historically more in the past 30 years than it had in the 200 years prior to that, Donald Trump obviously is not going to do that for you. If you're somebody who's very concerned about the Israeli-Gaza conflict, I mean, you've got Donald Trump, who wholeheartedly, he said it before, will support Israel basically no matter what, with absolutely, no contention whatsoever. You've got a guy who agreed to moving the embassy, who before that was talking about pulling all of the UNRWA funding from the Gaza Strip, who would support Netanyahu through and through. The whole reason why those Abraham Accords started was because Netanyahu wanted to start annexing parts of the West Bank, right? Donald Trump is not going to help any of the Palestinians if that's something that you're concerned about. Insofar as peace in the Middle East, I mean, you've got this talking point over and over again, no new wars, no new wars. Yeah, again, we haven't had any new wars since World War II, right? The war in Iraq was the use of force authorization, the authorization of the use of force. It wasn't technically a war.
Well, it was a war.
You can call it that, but Donald Trump bombed Syria. Donald Trump bombed Syria. That wasn't a war, apparently. With no congressional authorization. Iran attacked Saudi Arabia. They did a drone strike on oil refineries. There was conflict all throughout Iraq and Syria. Donald Trump abandoned Kurdish allies in Syria. Donald Trump signed a deal with the Taliban and essentially forfeited Afghanistan. And there was the whole fallout from that. Like, this idea that there was peace in the Middle East under Donald Trump is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Look, I actually think Trump's foreign policy was a lot some effective than people give him credit for.
He did nothing. What was effective about it?
Well, there's not. Look, I mean, it's not. There's some truth in there mixed with some just like attempts to get Donald Trump. Look, when people say there were no new wars under Donald Trump, there is. First of all, I'll say at least that's the talking point. At least that's what they're going with, rather than going, he killed all them terrorists or something like that, which would have 20 years ago would have been the talking point from people on the right wing. So that's at least better. But the reason why they wouldn't consider him bombing Syria a new war is because Obama had us already in that conflict since 2012.
When he reneged on his red line.
Yes. Now, listen. By the way, there are
Assad used chemical weapons, and Obama did nothing, and Putin came in and took control. Well, that's what happened.
Okay.
Yes,
anyway, yes.
That is what happened.
Well, actually, if you want to really look at what happened in 2012, because the war, and I know you know about this stuff, because the war in Iraq had been such a disaster, and the power had been handed back to the Shiites in the region, and Iran had more influence than they had had in the history of the regime, then it really started under George W. Bush, but then continued into Obama. They did what they call the redirect. where now we were going to try to take the Shiites down a peg, who we had just put in power in Iraq. And so what we wanted to do was overthrow Bashar al-Assad, and so we started funding all of the anti-Assad rebels, which largely consisted of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and they knew this. Anyway, it wasn't like during Obama inherited these two wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and said he was going to end at least the one in Iraq. He then spread wars to Libya, Syria, Yemen. Somalia had already been going since George W. Bush was in there. You didn't see that under Donald Trump. You didn't see. However, he did.
Disagree.
Yes. If you let me finish the sentence, then sure, we'd get there. However, he did escalate the war in Afghanistan, which he said himself was unwinnable, and so he escalated the war in Afghanistan. Not like Obama with 70,000 plus troops there, but he did send thousands extra troops. He did take off the gloves with drone strikes and rules of engagement. So the idea that he was like an anti-war president is not true. There was, rhetorically, he was very different than previous presidents, and he would at least talk about the idea that these wars were disasters, that we never should have fought them, and that really America shouldn't be involved in that business.
Also, I'm
glad that he's at least infusing that into the popular
I do think
conversation.
he came at it with an overview as a business guy. It's just bad business. These wars were costing trillions of dollars cumulatively to get nowhere, really. What's your assessment of Trump on the foreign stage?
And there's huge conflicts of interest also with this war machine that our country has seemed to have embraced and allowed to perpetuate. I'm voting for Trump because I hate war. And I don't know if any of you, I hate that it's the old men who call for wars and they send our young men to go fight those wars for them, our young men and our young women. And, you know, all politics are personal. I don't know if any of you have a real personal connection with those who have been sent to war zones. And then the guys, the gals, they come back different people. They're adversely affected. On a personal level here, I will do whatever I can, and I will support whatever candidate needs support in order to avoid war. Why I will not support Kamala is she doesn't understand, for one, that inherent link between energy development, energy independence in America, and that inherent link between that and our safety and our sovereignty. And because Kamala and because the Democrat Party has put an end to so much of our exploration, certainly so much of our development of our own natural resources.
Isn't America producing more energy today than we have in all of history?
No, we're not. And
that's not true? We're not?
No, we're not. And remember, Kamala and her administration, day one, they stopped pipelines, no more drilling on federal land.
So we looked up, America's not producing more energy. You ran with McCain. You said you care about veterans and everything. Did Trump's comments about McCain bother you at all? Did Trump prefers people that didn't get captured?
I've never said anything negative about McCain or any.
I didn't ask if you said it. I asked if Trump's comments bother you about that.
Anyway,
when Trump made fun of that Gold Star family for their child, did that bother you?
They bother me. I wrote a column criticizing him heavily for it.
She cares about vets. I had two parents who served in the Air Force. I'm just curious, if you cared about vets, did these comments bother you?
When
Trump tried to go to Arlington and do a photo op there.
If I care about vets?
Yeah, if you do, did these comments bother you?
If I care about vets.
If you cared about vets, I'm asking, do these comments bother you?
So the inherent link between energy and prosperity and energy security.
Is going to talk about whether or not Trump's comments about McCain bother you?
You interrupted the point that I was going to make.
Because you're not making any points. These are political talking points. Are we running for office in here?
Really?
You did run for office, by the way. You ran with John McCain, the most warmongering man that we know of.
Why did you run with John McCain? The point to make. Why
did you run with John McCain if you're anti-wars?
To make a positive difference in our country.
But he would have sent more people to die.
You don't know that.
I do. He literally said bomb, bomb, bomb Iran. He sang it.
Yeah.
I mean,
he
sang it. He did campaign.
He campaigned on a war platform.
He campaigned on 100 years in Iraq.
He campaigned on staying in Iraq 100 years and bombing Iran.
You're asking why I accepted the nomination to
I'm just wondering, you're sitting here saying you're against war abroad, and yet I just want to remind younger viewers at home, you ran with the most warmongering senator of my lifetime.
And you're asking why I ran for vice president of the United States of America?
No, I know why you ran. You wanted power. I'm just saying why you're not consistent.
I mean, to be fair to Palin, Vance accepted the nomination, and he said that Trump could be America's next Hitler, so, I mean, you know.
All right, why don't we try and be a little fairer to the ex-governor, because she's on her own here getting attacked by three brutal males.
And I wanted to talk about energy and America's
finish your point.
What you said was false about energy. Facts matter too. America has record energy production right now.
No.
It does. People can Google it right now and see that you're
telling the truth. I said that on day one, what the Biden administration did was halt so much of our exploration
and yet we have record energy
and our construction of pipelines. And
I'm not a fan of that, by the way. I think we should have less energy production. I'm a critic of Biden on his energy production.
You're a liar. You lied.
I'm a liar.
Yes, and you said No, Biden didn't do that. Yes, he did on day one.
Do you know he handed out more licenses to Trump? Do you know that?
I'm making the point that you denied. My point is true.
Destiny said energy's higher, and you said no. So if anyone lied, you did.
Listen.
People can DVR it, they can rewind it and see you saying a false statement.
Let me ask this
question.
So
you don't
energy production higher. Is energy production higher today?
You don't think that Biden
is energy production higher under Biden than Trump?
And you just
is
lied
energy production
and
higher,
said
Sarah Palin? It's a very simple question. I know facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no question.
You're an obnoxious.
See, but
facts hurt, don't you? Facts don't care about your feelings.
Are Americans wrong when they have this feeling? Well, the feelings
I'm
oftentimes are
obnoxious
generated
because I asked you if energy production is higher today than under Trump.
You're
that makes me obnoxious
because I'm asking you why you would say that
I'm
Biden
obnoxious.
didn't thwart.
You're a racist. We want to play that game? You said Obama is not born in America. He's not one of us.
I said that?
Yeah, you said Trump is doing a great job asking for his birth certificate.
You
said he's not one of us. You said he jives and schmucks. Should we go down the record? You're going to call me obnoxious? Why don't we talk about your racism?
Yeah.
What did we talk about your racism?
Why do you change the subject?
You said Black Lives Matter protesters are dogs. Should we go down?
I said they're dogs.
All right,
You're
hang
a
on.
liar.
All right,
Show me where I ever said that protesters
It's funny you didn't deny the Obama. Did you say Obama's shocking and jive?
You're a liar.
Mehdi, if you get the governor on your show, which is, I would say, unlikely as things stand, if you do, you can continue the prosecution. Let me just segue to this, though, because it's interesting.
I called people dogs who were protesting in America. You're a liar.
Did you question Obama's birth?
Oh my goodness!
Did you say he's not one of us?
You know,
did you say he's palling around with terrorists?
Based on that, we're talking about Bill Ayers at the time and how Obama had kicked off.
You're standing by Obama's with terrorists.
Oh my goodness! I can't believe
you
even
say he's
have
not
a
one of
show
us?
if you.
Did you say Obama's not one of us?
I still want to know this proof that you have of me calling protesters in America dogs.
I believe you refer to Black Lives Matter protesters. Is that
I
right?
believe you are wrong.
All right, we'll fact check after this. I want to ask you this, Mehdi, because you're being very vocal and taking on Sarah Palin.
I got called obnoxious for pointing out energy production levels.
I don't think you would win a court case about not being obnoxious. But let's move on. Let's move on.
Biden not thwarting our
I can also be obnoxious before you just play the whataboutery. Let me just ask you this, though. Given that you believe Trump is, a racist who's holding neo-Nazi style rallies and so on, why is it that he's gaining significant ground with black and Latino voters? Why would they gravitate to a man who is literally, in your eyes, the new version of a Nazi?
It's a good question. I think because minority communities are not monoliths. I'm having the same issues in my own Muslim community where a lot of Muslims, not a lot, but some Muslims are actually going to vote for Trump because they're upset about Gaza. They think he's the peace candidate. And I think people have different reasons. I think we can make generalizations about entire communities. I'm not going to make generalizations about black
incredible.
or
You have the
Latino voters. Although I think it's slightly exaggerated. There's an ABC poll that came out on Sunday.
You have a woman...
There's an ABC poll that came out on Sunday that shows Harris is doing better with black and Latino men than Joe Biden did in 2020.
But the significant thing, Dave, is that Trump's own popularity with black and Latino voters is significantly increased.
What is that popularity? What are the numbers that we're talking here? Are we going from like 11% to 17%?
I think I read on African Americans, it's something like from about 4 or 5% to nearly 20%. That's significant.
It depends on what polls you look at. And again, we'll figure out I guess it might take us a few weeks before we have this data, but we'll see what actually ends up happening on the election day. There is something very interesting about the fact that if you look at the aggregate of the polls, Trump's support amongst minorities seems to be going up. There is, at least on the surface, that seems kind of funny given how he's being covered in the corporate media. Mm-hmm. I really do think that a lot of the there's kind of like the progressive cultural worldview is often very disconnected from what people in these communities actually care about. I think the fact that I think personally there's actually a lot of things that appeal to certain people in these communities that Donald Trump, just in his personality. But I really do think that if you ask them, it all is coming down to the same two things that it's coming down to for most voters, which is immigration and the economy. Yeah. These are the two big issues across all the polls.
It is, whatever side of this you're on with Trump, it is fascinating that somebody who, many on your side believe is this appalling racist and everything else, that he is increasing support in minority groups. Why is
certain talking? Because black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and white, we're not fundamentally different. You can appeal to people using certain talking points. I hate that I'm saying this, but like Dave said, I agree that that talking about immigration and inflation, that's a thing that plays to a lot of communities, especially if you're a poor community, especially if you don't have as much money. These are things that are probably hitting you the hardest. Now, the issue where the rubber meets the road is that while Trump will talk about inflation, while Trump was running running for president, he ran huge deficits in a great economy. There is no reason for it. At least Biden has an excuse to run deficits. We're coming out of a global pandemic. And Donald Trump's every single policy that Donald Trump is talking about will increase inflation. It's going to. Who do you think? You think that I'm going to care if my coffee costs $10 or $15 because of tariffs? It's not going to bother me. It's not going to bother anybody sitting here. It's going to bother the very same communities that are trying to vote for him because they're worried about things like inflation. And the policies themselves don't even make sense, right? What do you think is going to happen when we deport 12 million workers, or when we deport however many people Donald Trump wants to, or when we cut immigration even harder at the border, right? Donald Trump will simultaneously say we're shipping all of our factories to Mexico because they're making cars down there, but we want to ban all the people from coming to the United States to make the cars. It doesn't make any sense.
Allow me to remind you of my favorite statistic, which is...
I don't care about Obama. Obama is not running for president, so I don't know why. I don't care.
You're ahead of me, but let me do it anyway.
I know, I've heard it, the deporter in chief.
It's my favorite stat.
It doesn't matter. All it proves is that Trump is a liar when you say he ran on immigration because Obama was already deporting a ton of people.
The single greatest deporter of people in American presidential history, pro rata, per year, was Barack Obama.
So then would you say that Trump was lying when he said that the Democrats were bad on immigration?
Over 3 million in 8 years.
Yeah, so would you say that Trump was lying when he said that Obama was bad on immigration?
No, I'm simply saying...
I'm curious. Would you say that Donald Trump and the Republicans lied when they said that Obama had an open border?
There is so much...
Palin has probably said that Obama had an open border. Did they lie when they said that?
Let's call her Mrs. Palin. Be respectful.
Mrs. Palin.
Mrs. Palin.
Did Obama have an open border?
Hang on. Do you think Donald Trump's going to win in a week?
I do. And I think that, again, you are underestimating the wisdom of the people, the collective here in the electorate, people saying we do need a change from what we have just witnessed for 3.5 years, going on 4 years now. And Kamala will perpetuate, she will continue what the Biden administration did.
What do you think Trump clearly has something... And I'll use this word and it's going to enrage these two. I don't mean it in the sense of fantasy magic, but he's got a magical touch which allows vast numbers of people to gravitate to him. I saw it last night, not just in the Madison Square Garden. Outside there were tens of thousands of people trying to get in, right? So he's got something. I saw Jonathan Karl on ABC this morning saying, whatever you think of it, he said, I can't think of a single Republican nominee ever who could have packed out Madison Square Garden at this stage of a campaign in Democrat-dominated New York.
He's not even that popular. Has Trump's popularity
ever
been above 45%?
This is what ABC's Jonathan Karl said, not me, right?
Is he going to win New York?
No, but you know what? He's going to do very much better in New York than people would have expected. And I do think there's a potential that Trump could do a massive sweep of all the swing states. I do. And I think he might also win the popular vote, which would be extraordinary, given where things are. I'm also reminded, Mehdi, that in the 2020 election, Trump got nearly 10 million more votes than first time around in 2016. So, notwithstanding your own very deep-rooted views about him, there is something, as I say, magical in his ability to bring these people to him and believe in him, right? It may be a magic that he hates and he hates.
I mean, there is other speakers in history who've had that magic. I saw it last night. There is a further
about his support, which is tangible.
A magic.
Yeah.
Well, I think, if you take away the checkbook and the bank account, right, that Trump is owner of, you can ratchet down what it is that he stands for and the way he speaks and the connection that he has with people that covers all demographics. And he's like a regular person. And I know that personally, and we've been friends for many years. Before he became a bigwig in politics, we became friends because he had a connection with me through family. He saw what the press was doing to me, the media was doing to me back when I was a governor, when they were attacking my kids and they were, on a national level, they were telling lies about my administration, my record, my reputation. And Trump started reaching out to me back then, saying, hey, hang in there, and it's tragic what they're doing to your kids. That's not fair. So we connected over that. And then through these years, that connection has grown. I see firsthand how he is able to reach out, and there is charisma there, the way he is able to reach out and make connections. He speaks like the everyday man. Yeah. People think that's perhaps uncouth, and he may not have some kind of pedigree that some people would desire to see in him, but that mirrors kind of the general population in America, where, again, take away the checkbook, take away the money, and he can connect to the everyday man.
Mehdi, who's going to win? Putting aside who you want to win,
don't know.
Who's going to win?
I don't know.
That means to me you think he's going to win.
Yeah, of course he could win. I've said that to anyone.
But the fact you don't know means you think...
Of course he could win. He's neck and neck in the polls, which probably means he's leading. If you're neck and neck in the polls, Trump support is often understated in the polls.
Yeah.
So I think Democrats should be panicking.
Yeah, he did better in 2016 and 2020 than he was polling.
Yes,
right.
Which is
so. Now I don't know.
Although I would say there's 500,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania, I'm sure the Democrats going to.
Dave, let me ask you. Dave, let me ask you, Dave. Who are you going to vote for?
You know, I did not vote for Trump in 2016 or 2020, and I've been basically just as of this week being like, I might actually vote for him this time. And just to be clear, it is totally just a vote against Kamala Harris. I was so disgusted at her campaigning with Liz Cheney and going on this tour of like trying to, I don't know, rehabilitate the image of the Cheneys. And I'm so disgusted at the fact that I've never seen a campaign like Kamala Harris's before, where there's literally running on nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, not even like running on bad ideas. Well, listen, I don't think it's not literally true. But what I'm saying, obviously, is that she ran a campaign for president in 2020. She has walked away from every central issue that she was campaigning on in 2020. When asked about it, she says, "That was 5 years ago." Like that's her. There's
defund
no, like,
the police.
Oh,
I don't want to defund the police.
I'm not for that.
Ban
my values
fracking. I don't want to ban
fracking.
fracking.
My values haven't changed. It was 5 years ago.
Trump did a 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan and lied like 50 times.
Okay, anyway.
But just to be clear, you are going to vote Trump.
He could say something that disgusts me so much in between now and when I vote that I might not. Like if he's every time
nothing he said last night disgusted you.
I didn't actually watch the full speech last night, but the stuff, anything on the topic of Israel is probably going to risk losing my support for him. But I do think that there is something about the Kamala Harris campaign that is almost like a completely manufactured campaign by the machine. She's not running on what she ran on last time she ran for president. She's not running on her track record as vice president because she's not Joe Biden. Yeah. And so I just find it like, I'm so disgusted by it that I want it to lose.
Will you be voting Trump?
Absolutely not.
Will you vote for Kamala Harris with great enthusiasm?
Absolutely, 100%. Trump is one of the most appalling thing. Yeah, of course. I was promised communism after 8 years of a foreign Kenyan person being in office, Obama, and that didn't happen. I was promised communism, socialism, and all my guns were going to be gone. I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, and every time a Democrat was up for office, you need to come down to Ammos R Us and buy guns. They're going to take them. It never happened under Biden. The United States economy is outperforming every other economy in the world right now under Biden's policies that ostensibly Harris will continue. She will most likely continue these policies. The idea that Trump, and also the hilarious thing of Kamala's running on nothing, Trump is running on tariffs, and deportation.
Okay, but let me ask you a different question.
Mass deportation.
But who do you think is going to win?
Mehdi, I have no idea.
Okay. By the way, that's my answer too, essentially.
That they've got though,
would
you have rather seen some competition to allow the cream to rise?
Would you have rather seen Trump accept a debate with any of the other people, with DeSantis or any of the other Republican candidates who are running?
I love debate, and
well,
I
love.
Wait, where were the Republicans calling for? Did you call for Donald Trump to accept debates?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, because I didn't hear the Republican Party call for him much.
But the truth is, he ran away with the nomination so fast and so aggressively, it was all over.
It's also like, I wanted to see, just for the entertainment value, I wanted to see Trump in those debates.
I actually would have enjoyed watching him beat up Ron DeSantis.
The irony is Kamala Harris actually beat him in their one debate, no question. But I think she's going to lose the election, and when she does, it will be because of cost of living and immigration. But look, I've got to leave it there. It's been a fantastically entertaining panel. In England, what we would do after such a lively exchange, we'd all go and find the nearest pub and have a few pints and put our differences aside. I'm not expecting you to do that, but I do appreciate you all coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.